Welcome everyone to a joint meeting tonight of the Sjafca and RD 1614 Reclamation District. This is a special board meeting of the a joint meeting. It's Thursday, June 6, 2013, 7 o'clock. We are here at the Amblers Club. Could we have a roll call of the Sjafca?
Director Vestalarides. Present. Director Rusaller.
Present.
Director Miller. Here. And Director Silva is not present at this time.
All right. Chair of RD 1614, would you like to have a roll call?
Yes, this is a roll call for RD 14 meeting. Meeting called to order. Would you please have a roll call?
Okay. I'm Secretary Jean Knight. This is. Yes, I'm Secretary Jean Knight. We have our board president is out of the country right now, and we have Robert Wise,
Present.
and Ben Cook.
Thank you. Sjafca basically is going to go first. We will have our public hearing, and I just want to kind of give a couple of the procedural, the procedures will follow. Each public speaker will be given an opportunity to address the board. Speakers should give their name and address. Basically, we'll let everyone speak. If there are a lot of you that want to speak, we'll just ask you to be as concise as possible so we don't have to serve breakfast. And so we'll do that. And if any, I'm also being asked to make sure that if anyone needs a ballot, they can still get one, and it can be turned in up into the close of this proceedings. Okay, so I will open the public hearing, and I will ask Jim Jotnini to give a quick overview.
This public hearing is for the proposed assessment district formation for the Smith Canal Gate. As discussed in our staff report, the Smith Canal levees do not meet FEMA standards, which resulted in about 5,000 parcels being mapped into a special flood hazard area in 2009. An additional 2,800 parcels will be added in the near future. There are severe economic impacts of being within a special flood hazard area. There's mandatory flood insurance. New or replacement construction must be elevated above the floodplain. So working with our local partners, that's Reclamation District 1614 and Reclamation District 828, we developed a plan to place a gate at the mouth of Smith Canal. The plan was reviewed and approved by FEMA, who said that they would remove this area from the floodplain once the gate is constructed. The cost of the gate is about $36 million and is proposed to be funded by this property assessment district and state funding. We have received $2.4 million from the state for half the cost of the design and anticipate receiving a state grant for 55% of the construction cost if this assessment is approved. Per state Proposition 218, each parcel that is benefited by the gate is assessed for its share of all the benefits. The benefits were based on structure, content, and land damage. Public outreach has been extensive with information newsletters mailed to property owners. We set up a telephone hotline. We had 4 big evening community meetings, and we're concluding tonight with this public hearing. At the close of the public hearing and tonight's meeting, at the end of tonight's meeting, the ballots will be tabulated and the results will be certified by the board at its meeting on July the 10th. If the weighted votes in opposition outweigh those in favor, we cannot proceed with the assessment district formation. If the weighted votes in favor outweigh those in opposition, we may move forward with the formation of the district. Okay, and if the formation of the district takes place, the board also may take the following actions. One is to approve a request for proposals to do the design of the project. The other is to seek the state funding for the 55% of the cost of the construction. The other is we need to negotiate a contract with somebody to manage the assessment district. It's anticipated that the design, this includes environmental, permitting, and right-of-way acquisition, will take about 3 to 5 years, with construction another 2 years. So at the conclusion of the public hearing, it's recommended that the board adopt a resolution and direct staff to complete the balloting tabulation for the formation of the assessment district and present the results at the July 10th meeting for board consideration. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, now we're going to take testimony. So if I could have a quick show of hands so we can find out how many folks are planning on speaking or would like to speak. Just give me a quick show so I can see. Okay, fine. Then what we'll do is we'll start on this side, and we'll go back, and then we'll come over to this side, and we'll just kind of go back. So any of you in the first row, come on down. Right up here to the mic. If you'd like to speak.
I'm Peter Ohm. I have a ranch on Roberts Island, and I also have a house on the corner of Princeton and Wisconsin. And this whole thing is totally absurd, just because the state of California says there's a problem when there's never been a problem. And it just goes on, and $36 million is a tremendous amount for this area to pay, when most of the people in that area are retired, and they are living on limited funds, and it's just appalling what is going on with the state of California. It's just as bad as taking the whole Delta and making a wildlife habitat out of it. It's the same doggone thing. And that we need to just tell the state to go take a flying hike, because this is totally just out of the question for the whole neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
My name is Virgil Halverson. I've been in the residence area for over 50 years. There's a lot of questions I have. One question is, why is it that our ballots are being sent to the engineers who intend to make the profit off of this? The ballots should go to the registrar of voters and be officially counted by the county of San Joaquin, not somebody that's got skin in the game. Now, also, the house on Elmwood, who owns it? Can anybody tell me that? Was it placed there as a scare tactic for the people in the neighborhood? Because it's a monstrosity and everyone knows it. It's been built in order to, as a rental property. Nobody's rented it. It doesn't seem to be an effort to rent it. It's just sitting there for people to come by and look at in order to put weight on the side of the building codes and stuff. Weighted votes. Why is it that my vote is worth more or less than somebody else's vote? One man, one vote. That's what Abraham Lincoln said when he did away with 3/5 of a person when they had black people could only be counted as 3/5 of a person. I'm not 3/5 of a person. I'm a whole person. And the other person next to me is vote should be worth no more or no less than mine. And the counting of the votes should be turned over officially to the county of San Joaquin. They shouldn't be counted by this group at all. They should be counted by the county of San Joaquin. Austin Irby gets paid for that job, and this is what all this is about. And I don't understand how it can be put in the hands of people that have intend to make money on it. Now, the thing about it is that $2.4 million was talked about given to the state for engineering fees. Okay, that means $4.8 million for the engineering company to do this design and building this project for $36 million. That's a lot of money, and the people in this neighborhood just, I can't see how they can afford to continue to have the tax bill raised, their flood insurance raised, and all that stuff like that. FEMA ought to be challenged on this Smiths Canal thing over here. And if you think you've got a house on the levee over there that's causing problems because the FEMA can't inspect it, jerk the house off the levee at the owner's expense. If they put that thing there and it's not proper and you guys can't confirm it, then get it out of there or make them prove that it's a viable levee behind it. And that's what I've got to say.
Thank you, sir. Scott? we'll try and answer a couple of the questions that
I'd like them
go.
answered now.
He's going to. I
Okay, thank
was
you.
asking him to.
Thank you, Chair Rustaller. The two questions that I heard that relate to legal issues, I'm happy to offer an answer. The first was the question regarding weighted votes and why it's not one man, one vote, or one person, one vote. The state constitution was amended by the voters of the state of California overwhelmingly in 1996 to approve Proposition 218, and that proposition expressly states that the vote shall be based on the benefits to be received by the property. There still is a one man, one vote requirement for any elections of people, but for property benefits, the votes are supposed to be under the state constitution based on the benefits to be received. So since different properties receive different benefits, the votes are weighted accordingly. So to put it into an example for people, if one property receives $10 worth of benefit and one property receives $1 worth of benefit, the person who receives 10 times the benefit has 10 times the vote. And again, that's enshrined in the state constitution as since 1996. The other question was who holds the ballots. This is not an election of a person, so it's not run by the counties. Again, under state constitution, it's run by the agency itself that puts the matter forward. The Constitution also requires that the report and the work be done by an engineer. It actually requires an engineer's report, and so the standard practice around the state on Proposition 218 elections is that it is done indeed by the agency, and the standard is for the agency to hire an outside consulting firm. However, recognizing your concerns, sir, that is one of the reasons the ballots will be counted tonight in public so that people can observe and see that the ballots are being properly counted.
The ballot that's being counted, it's weighted vote, can't be counted properly in a public forum like this. It needs to be audited and verified.
Will be audited.
My vote is worth 1 point, and his vote is worth more. Then how can you count that? How can you get that an accurate tally on those kind of votes?
At the end of the hearing, assuming that the votes occur,
We're trying to answer the question.
at the end of the evening, assuming that the board indicates that it wishes the votes to be counted, there is a multi-page handout that will explain how the votes will be counted, how they will be audited and verified, and all the documentation will be available for public review. I think it's next week.
On the ballot issue possibly properly done.
Excuse me, sir, you're gonna have a shot here in a second to come up. So, done?
Those are the two questions I heard that were legal.
And as far as that house on Elmwood, I haven't the foggiest idea who owns it. But I know one thing, we don't own it, and we didn't put it there.
Well, I mean, you as a county supervisor, of course not, but I mean.
No, I'm saying that this agency or anybody involved with this, we're not.
That's what my question was, whether it was put there as a scare tactic. It'd be interesting to find out.
I will tell you one thing is when we go back to Washington and show that picture to the congressman and to the folks back there, they are appalled. They are appalled. Now, have they fixed it for us yet? No, but I'm hoping that we keep banging on them. Eventually they will, but that's another story in another time. Okay, next, come on down.
Dave Yoder. I have a question on, is the only possibility of flood coming from the San Joaquin River, or can we get a flood from down the Smith Canal from the drainage that drains into the Smith Canal?
Jim, do you want to take that, or?
The reason the two reclamation districts could not certify the Smith Canal levees, that is why this area was placed in the floodplain, because they can't meet FEMA standards for levee. But you're subject to flooding from the Calaveras River, which has been certified by FEMA as meeting their requirements, and the diverting canal, or the other source of flooding in this area.
Not the Smith Canal.
Smith Canal, yes, you can get flooding from Smith Canal, and the reason that it is in the floodplain is the levees along Smith Canal, which provide flood protection, could not be certified by the two reclamation districts to FEMA standards.
But we're only providing protection from the river, according to what I see, so that it still could flood from the Smith Canal when you have the gate closed on the river, on the on the San Joaquin River.
Yeah, it's a belt and suspenders. The gate would close during high flood stages to protect the area. But the reclamation districts are going to continue to maintain the Smith Canal levee.
Well, I just wonder why the gate is of any value.
It basically, what FEMA's saying is that if there is a flood situation on the San Joaquin River, water would back up into Smith Canal and possibly breach those levees. Most rational people in this room probably do not believe any of that. I will only tell you I don't believe it, but FEMA believes it. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to satisfy FEMA to get out of the floodplain. And they're basically saying, they've said that if we put this gate in, that would prevent the San Joaquin River from backing up into that deadhead channel.
And the alternative to doing a gate is you could reconstruct the levees. Not only remove the encroachments, which sometimes is houses, swimming pools, and then you'd have to go through and probably upgrade those levees to FEMA standards. They've never been certified by FEMA as providing 100-year flood protection. They were grandfathered in on old maps.
Come on down. Anybody? There we go.
Hi, my name is Al Harady. I've been living over here, Tuxedo, for almost 40 years. And everybody's been happy. We have no floods. All of a sudden, FEMA comes in because of the disasters over there. And they come in and they mess with these old folks over here on Tuxedo and all the canal and everything. And they want us to pay skyrocketing insurance. And that, you know, from that time on, the last 3 or 4 years, now they want to get a gate. Is the gate actually going to help? I mean, really, why are we even going through this stuff? Does anybody here have any property on Tuxedo around here or any place? I didn't think so, but the deal is, you know, it's not right. You know, comes in here and they want everybody to start paying money. People don't have that money. And shoot, if anybody votes for it, you know, they must have the money then, because they're not getting my vote.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to correct one thing I did hear on a weighted vote issue. Unless I'm mistaken, yes, it's a weighted vote, but higher votes are also paying higher fees. So it's still, you know, you look dollar for dollar, you know, what you're gaining versus what you're putting out. I think it's going to be a 1-to-1 vote. I may be mistaken, but that's what I understand when on the earlier meetings. You know, because the levy on each person, you know, is going to depend on their risk and their gain. So therefore, you know, in my case, you know, I back right up to Smith Canal, so I'm going to have the higher deals. I'm going to have a higher vote, but I'm also going to go ahead and pay a higher fee to do it. So I just want to go ahead and clarify that.
You're correct, sir.
Thank you.
That is correct.
All right, I saw, right here, you'll be next, sir.
Hi, my name is Steve Barney. I live in the 1200 block of West Walnut, and my concerns with water quality on the Smith Canal. And, you know, 1/3 of Stockton drains into the canal, so you get all the copper linings and the oil and all the crap that goes into the canal. And so it's been like that forever for the most part, other than the 1930s when it was a swim hole and it was a great place. But my concern is, bad enough as it is, with this gate, is it going to be worse? And so I haven't seen anything addressing water quality, and we've got a lot of invasive weeds right now. Pretty soon you won't even be able to navigate. It's silting up, lots of weeds, and just basically dirty water. So if this canal or this gate goes through, is there anything that addresses the water quality? Is there anything that addresses maybe dredging the canal, taking care of the invasive plants, or anything along those lines, so that we can at least maintain the navigation? So it's really more of a question than a comment. Thanks.
There are those that think that we might be able to operate this gate in such a way that during, say, the summer months when there's that stagnant water, you could let the high tide come in, and then when it comes in, you could then put the gate up, and then wait for the next low tide, and then let the gate down, and you get a kind of a flushing action. So that's been some of the talk we've had. As far as the, there's no doubt in my mind that should be dredged. There's no question. If you want to, maximize its ability to carry water in any kind of an event, you should be able to dredge it. Getting a dredging permit, you're almost likely better to win that Powerball thing than you are to ever get a dredging permit. So that should be done. As far as the invasive species and the weeds and stuff, the state actually finally got their head out of some part of their body and figured out what they should be doing, and that's spraying those weeds early in the spring and not letting them have a chance to multiply and then just clog all the waterways up. So that, you can thank Eggman and Galgiani for that. So,
although I think the weeds that they're spraying for the hyacinth.
Yes.
I don't believe that they're spraying that Amazonian.
They're supposed to be going after that one too. The question is, once you get that, you'll never eradicate, but you might be able to keep it under control. Because some idiot threw it out of their, flushed their aquarium weeds down the toilet or something, I don't know. But anyway, yeah. Okay, the gentleman was in the back, come on down.
How you doing? My name is Dennis Phillips, and I live at Oxford Way. I'm a victim of the flood insurance. I just bought my home 2 years ago, and unfortunately, it started out $1,156 and went up to $1,400. But the good news is, if you shop around like I did, I got it dropped down to $350. So, and that just happened. But I think what the real problem here tonight, and I don't know if it even, is there consideration, is that I think everybody feels here they really haven't been involved in the process. I know I didn't get much notification. I got 2 pamphlets in the mail. I also feel that, no one's raising the options about rebuilding it. I read in the pamphlet that they worked on the other pump stations and they did some dynamic testing and it came out okay. Also, in our taxes, there's a bond issue that we already pay to maintain the levees, and so I don't know where that money went. Really, all this tonight is probably just venting, because if we're going to vote, I don't know how strong the considerations would be of what we voice here tonight. But, it just seems like $36 million is a lot of money. And when you don't talk about any options, it seems like it's just being shoved down our throats, and here's what you're going to get, like it or not. It's kind of like the redevelopment downtown. The money was there, so they grabbed it, but no one's really using it except for the pigeons. Same thing with the county jail. They decided not to expand it because they seen it was just they had to raise a lot of money for salaries and benefits rather than they had the money for the building. So that's the thing, is it has to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, people aren't dumb. I mean, it has to make at least common sense. So when you don't raise any issues about considering rebuilding, or is there any other options, it just doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Jim, would you like to kind of review what we've tried to do to get the word out?
Well, we have the newsletters. We have at least 4 large public meetings here at this building in the evening. Had hundreds of phone calls in on the hotline, and we've had 2 or 3, 4, I think.
No options wherever.
You'll get your shot at him, just a second. Let him talk.
We've been working on it for about 4 years with the reclamation districts, both 828 and 1614. We looked at the cost of acquiring the property on the levees. We looked at where the gate could be, where it shows on the plans now. We looked at moving the gate further to the east, and the gate would be, originally it was 50 feet. We've made it now 100 feet. So we've looked at alternatives, and we have to do, if this is approved, if the assessment is approved, and if the board decides to proceed with the project, we'd have to hire an engineering company. They'd have to bring planners involved. You'd have to do an environmental impact report on it. You'd have to discuss alternatives. And one of the alternatives is to do nothing, So we're forced by state law and just good business practices to look at alternatives. And we've done it at this point to determine what is a feasible alternative to it. It's clearly more expensive to redo the levees. But we'll have to address all of that in the environmental impact report if this election proceeds.
I can only tell you that the Sjafca board and the county and the city have gone back to Washington on average twice a year for the last 4 or 5, 6 years over this issue and other FEMA-related issues. Somebody mentioned the reason we're in this pickle is because we had Katrina in New Orleans. Obviously, the Army Corps of Engineers did not come out with a bright, shining star after that. FEMA also went broke repairing and paying for all that. And so we have gone back and said, we don't think any of this is fair, that we basically are not like New Orleans, that we are different, that we consider to be a good levee system, and it's improving constantly. But they changed the rules. And Congress changed the rules again just very recently and basically said, FEMA, you must become self-sufficient. We're tired of just giving you money in a blank check. So that's why all the rates are going up, all the flood insurance rates. So one of the reasons we're trying to solve this particular problem, which we do not believe is a problem, but FEMA believes it, and if they believe it, then it is our problem. We've tried to basically tell the story of the folks who live here, who you are, where you are, what you do, and to be honest with you, they say, we feel your pain. I thought I was talking to Bill Clinton. They go, we feel your pain, but Congress did this, and it's kind of like, you go back to Washington and you get this. Everybody points at somebody else and says it's their problem. The problem is we can't point at anybody else. It became our problem because everything flows downhill, and that's where we are now. We are trying to solve this problem so that we can get out of that floodplain. If you get out of the floodplain, then your insurance rates will be the lowest that they can possibly be. FEMA's going to continue to raise these flood insurance rates over the next few years. And if you think they're bad now, God help us, because they are going to be just insanely high. What they're going to be, I can't tell you because they won't tell us. They just say they're going up. And so that's why we're here. We're not here because we want to build some project because we want to put our name on it. If I could do one thing and get you out of this floodplain and not build that project, I'd do it in a heartbeat. So I don't know if I answered all your questions. I feel like that, you folks are that guy in the movie Network. You're mad as hell and you're not going to take it anymore. I feel that. I know that. I've gone back there and expressed it as well as Steve and Kathy, and they'll tell you the exact same thing. They don't really care. They're broke, they need money, and they're going to get it out of you and everybody else in this country that lives behind a levee, because they're trying to get out from under the responsibility of paying for the damages of a flood. So let me just ask them for new people to come on down, and if we have time, we'll circle back to any of you that want to get a second shot at me. Okay, come on down, sir.
Good evening, Council. My name's Dave. I live on Calabriva. That way, it's pretty nice. I like the area. I'm not too concerned about a flood, but I know we're going to have to do something like this. I just want to know if there's some type of guarantee from FEMA that after we construct. Is there any guarantee?
No, we gotta go down.
Come right to the mic. Come right up to it.
Close enough? Did everybody hear what I said before? No? Well, let's start again. My name's Dave. I live that way. In the flood zone. I got to pay too. My insurance isn't too bad. I understand you guys are building a wall. That's all right with me. Do we have a guarantee from FEMA that we will not have an increased rate on our insurance after the project is complete.
Jim?
Yeah, one of the reasons that the project took this time to get to where we're at is we had to get approval from FEMA that we want to build something and have them say, well, sorry, that didn't fix the problem. So we submitted the project, it's called the conditional letter of map revision, to FEMA. We had a couple of meetings on it, they had an engineer review it, and then we got a letter back from FEMA saying if you build this project, we'll remove the flood designation. And that's how FEMA works on projects. So we've got their assurance. They've even confirmed that since then because it's brought up by other people who don't trust government. So
Is it just a verbal thing?
it's a letter.
Okay.
Yeah. I can get you a copy if you like it. Yeah.
All right, just come on down. Anybody, just stand up, come on down.
Excuse me.
Just a second, sir. I'm going to give everybody else a shot, then I'll give you a second bite at the apple.
Hi, my name's Pam, and my questions are related to pretty much if it passes, how that's all going to look. First of all, I don't understand why if 2,800 more properties are going to be put in the flood zone, why aren't they now in it and helping us fund this? If we do pass it and then, heaven forbid, the 55% that we're anticipating doesn't come through, what happens then? And the literature says they're going to remove thousands of properties from the flood zone, but it doesn't talk about everybody. How does that work?
Scott? Jim?
The reason we had initially the map that's been published by FEMA shows about 5,000 parcels within the floodplain. But FEMA, when they looked at it subsequently, and clearly there's an error in it because it only basically included the area north of Smith Canal. The elevation, the water doesn't, it's not going to follow that map. It's going to follow the elevation of the ground. So they looked at it again and they said, and they gave us a copy of I think they call it a working draft. It adds 2,800 additional parcels, basically moving east and south. And we've got that in writing too, if you'd like to see that, if you want verification from FEMA. They won't, when FEMA comes back into town, which could be 3-4 years, it could be sometime, they'll include this area in the floodplain if this gate's not constructed. We've included the additional 2,800 and then some in the shaded X zone that are not even in the floodplain because they benefit by this gate. And so it's about 8,100 parcels have been assessed in this ballot for the gate.
Jim?
And then just to continue the other half of your question, which is what happens if the state doesn't come up with the 55%. The way the assessment is set up, the board has to determine every year whether to continue to impose it for the life of the assessment. And so the dollars that would be raised initially would be used for the design, for the environmental study, to get the contract with the state. In the event that the state doesn't come up with its funding, the board then has to decide what to do. The board would not have enough money to fund that project, and so then it would become a decision of the board of how to proceed. I can tell you that the state is giving us the design money because the state believes that the project should be built. They wouldn't be investing $2.4 million in the design unless the state believed that the project itself would be constructed, but they only grant design funds and they can't give construction funds until the environmental documentation is done, and that's why it's in two different pieces.
All right, I saw somebody jump up and then had to sit down again, right? There he is.
I'm Ron Allen. I own property on Princeton, Marine, and Mission. And I'm wondering, what are the range of the dollar figures on this weighted vote from high to low? Are any of them zero? Are any of them 4,000?
Seth, come on down.
My name is Seth Wurzel. I helped work on the calculations for the assessment. The assessment ranges based on many factors that Director Jotnini explained. The lowest assessment is $5, and the highest is upwards of $20,000 on some public parcels. So it ranges very widely based upon all those factors. The average assessment for single-family residential is approximately $160.
It's a semi-public thing, but each of us basically knows what our own is, and I just thought that was a good thing to know. How long's Smith Canal been there? And why is it there?
Mr. Smith built that canal to basically prevent flooding and to move some undesirable sewage out of a particular area, kind of get it out into the river, and it hooked up with a canal that went down Harding Way to the state hospital. So there was a canal kind of that, but it was kind of an early flood control project.
Is that the 1800s or the 1900s?
1880s.
Yeah, 1880s.
Okay. How long's the canal?
How long is it?
Yeah, from one end to the other.
About 4 miles. No way. No way.
And the assessments, you're talking about being based on benefits. Why isn't it based on cost? Are we never going to worry about the cost? We're always going to worry about the benefits?
Unfortunately, the answer to that is that the California Court of Appeal and California Supreme Court have issued decisions saying that the Constitution requires that be based on benefits. So what you're required to do under the law is to determine what the total cost of the project is, to determine everybody who receives a benefit, and then if there are 100 units of cost and 1,000 units of benefit, then there's a 10-to-1 ratio, and that's how you determine who benefits and who pays. So I know it's odd, but that's unfortunately what the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association put in Proposition 218 that went to the voters in 1996, and it was ultimately passed by the voters, and it's now in the state constitution.
Can you say that the numbers again? It kind of went by kind of fast.
I can. Let's assume that there is let me make it simpler with a simple project. Let's assume that you're doing a lighting district, and it's going to cost $1,000 to put in lights. And let's assume there are 100 properties, and each property gets an equal benefit. Then what you would have is 100 beneficiaries and $1,000 cost, and you would say, okay, we need to divide the $1,000 across the 100 beneficiaries, and every beneficiary would pay $1 because they get the same benefit. And so that's the formula that's required, again, under what's in the state constitution proposed by Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association back in 1996.
So you're doing some kind of magic that says the benefits equal the cost, aren't you?
No, you're doing a relationship between the benefits and the costs. So for example, in my example, there were 100 units of benefit, but 1,000 units of cost. They're not the same, but you determine the relationship between the two to determine what the assessment is.
So how did you determine my benefits on this project?
So as Mr. Tutmini talked about earlier, it's a series of factors that are looked at. The depth of flooding is looked at, the type of use of property is looked at, and the valuation is looked at. And a formula has been used in all of the assessments that have been passed under Prop 218 by the Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, the West Sacramento Area, the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency, the Three Rivers Levee Improvement Authority, Reclamation District 2103. All of these different flood control agencies have used this formula, and it's the same formula that's being applied here.
How's the outcome of the vote tonight determined?
I don't know if you want me to answer this one. There is a handout that we'll be giving out at the end of the evening that will explain the actual procedure. But in very short form, what will happen after both hearings are completed is in public, all of the ballots will be opened. They will be separated into the two different elections that are going on.
What's two different elections?
There is a RD 1614 hearing that will follow this one on the pump station, the Wisconsin pump station. This is the Smith Canal hearing.
How come I don't know anything about the pump station?
If you did not receive a ballot, then you don't receive a benefit from it, and that's therefore you're not affected by it.
So it's a secret I don't need to know. I'm that close to it, but I don't need to know anything about it until now.
If you didn't get a ballot, that means you're not getting charged.
That don't mean I don't want to know about it.
Well, no, I'm just, well, all I can say is we've had a lot of public meetings discussing both of these things.
Yeah, and the 1614 election is a much smaller property, much smaller set of properties. But let me finish answering your question, sir. It'll be separated into two different types of ballot type. Within each ballot type, it'll be separated into yes votes, no votes, and improperly filled out votes. For example, if someone didn't sign their ballot. And then there is a barcode on each ballot, and there is a computer system that reads the barcode, and you assign it a yes no vote or a no vote, and then the computer at the end says whether it passes or didn't. Then all of the ballots are checked, and there is a random sampling to make sure they were all correctly put in. And at the end of the night, they're going to be sealed up. And if any members of the public want to come and look at the ballots in the future, they are available for public inspection.
So, how to determine the outcome of the vote?
The computer program will tabulate it based upon each vote that will be bar scanned into the computer system.
And then how do you count them?
Computer counts.
So, we got how many ballots out?
We don't know how many are in.
How many are out?
8,106 ballots.
8,106 ballots have been sent out, and under the state constitution, we compare the number of ballots we receive in favor to the number of ballots we receive opposed. If people choose not to vote, it doesn't count.
So the non-votes are not counted, only the votes are counted, the cast votes?
That's correct. That's what the Constitution requires.
And how come this canal is so sacred we can't just fill it in? It wasn't there once, it happened. Why not just unhappen it?
I don't know how many bird and fish people are here, but the environmentals, you might be tied up for 100 years on that fight. Basically, it is also, what Smith Canal is, and somebody alluded to it earlier, it is where all the stormwater runoff from as far east as Wilson Way drains the city. So it's a big chunk of the city's, when you have a rainstorm, it goes into the storm drains, ends up basically in Smith Canal and then out to the river. And that's, one of the pump stations, the Wisconsin pump station, basically is pumping water out of a certain area in this area and into Calaveras, isn't it?
Why aren't they paying for it? They're getting a benefit.
I beg your pardon?
People out in Wilson Way, you said that water's coming in.
It's a stormwater thing, it's not a flood thing. Oh, you'll get a shot at me. I'm up here with this gentleman, I can't take 500 different, we're trying to address his questions. You'll get a shot at us.
Well, I just happen to own property next to East Bay, and the way I hear it, they've got 3 pipes there that are at least 6 feet in diameter, and some of them 14, that handle a lot of water every day, all the time, and there's plenty of room in that ditch to lay a big pipe and control the flow through the pipe with pumps and valves instead of 100-foot. Is that 100-foot gate high or long?
That's the width of the gate, the opening.
The length then. Well, now we'll get on to what I dreamed up last night. I'm a mechanical engineer with a master's degree in engineering from UC Davis. I can read English as my primary language. I went to law school with my daughter. She graduated and passed the bar. I did not. She talks to me pro bono. I asked, what does this mean about this proposal? She says, it depends. I know for sure I do not know what it says or means, so I'm programmed to vote no, and I recommend everybody else to vote no on it. Then I worry, does a no vote mean yes? Does a yes vote mean no? And I wonder why the vote is public. Why no meetings before late on election day? Which way is the board leaning?
Where the board is leaning is that we're not for or against this project as much as we're trying to bring a solution to a problem that was dumped on us by FEMA. And we have had 4 I thought well-publicized meetings here. We had 3 here and 1 over at the school by Webster High School, or junior high, where I don't know what it's called now, Hoover. But we had we had meetings there. They were about as attended about as many as you see here tonight. Maybe 50 to 100 people at each one of the meetings, and we went through the entire process of how we arrived at assessments, why we're doing it, how many people were involved. So, I mean, I think we've done the outreach. You're never going to get everybody, and like I say, this isn't like, we're not springing this on you this night.
Does the board have legal counsel?
Yeah, this guy right over here.
I learned early on that a counselor of law often advises clients more on the common sense options of conducting business rather than the legal aspects. Did you expect the voters to be frightened into voting yes with no discussion, explanation, or answers to questions? What about the voters that could not or would not be here? They had to vote based on who knows what. Personally, I don't have enough information to make a rational decision. I think this is another poorly conceived, poorly crafted, and poorly executed, contrived campaign to separate the voters from their money. Very much like most of the government that spends other people's money to excess. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so come on down, sir.
My name's Martin. I live on the deep end of the pond, if we had water today, down on Modoc Street. I had a chance to talk with Chris for a half hour today about the gate project. I have concerns about the positioning of the gate, the way they have it in the seawall. It'd be a lot simpler if it were moved to the true mouth of Smith Canal, which is east of Atherton Cove and Atherton Island. Make a simple project out of it, no seawall. He told me that Atherton Island is high enough so they could stand on their own, and the few houses that are just north of Atherton Island, a couple of them have already refurbished their levees, and the other ones could probably be fixed. There's only a couple houses concerned. This way, we don't build a seawall. We still have access. We still have access to the launch ramps, and they would be very handy if we ever got into an emergency situation. We don't have that narrow opening. Every time a big ship comes in, there's a wave that it pushes in. It's displaced water, and the concerns I have are that water surging into that narrow opening, surging out, and if you want to see what it looks like, go out to the Stockton Sailing Club and look and watch their marina drain and flood after a ship goes by. The other concern I have with that is silting in. We get a lot of mud, comes down from San Joaquin River, down the Calaveras. It hits the channel, it settles out. Now, is this valve that lays, or this gate that lays on the bottom, going to be silted in when we need it in an emergency?
We're going to study the mouth proposal, the alternative, and we're going to study that. It's part of the design environmental process. We'll be looking at that. So yes, all your concerns are ones that we've knocked around and already basically said, this was basically, we had to bring something forward. This was something that they did a lot of work on, and then other people brought up the same concerns you did, and we said we will definitely study all of those, and there will be.
So there is a possibility that the gate could get pushed east, and that would drop the price.
That may be the best alternative.
And that would lower the price. No seawall.
No, I don't know if it lowered.
Well,
listen, all I can tell you, we're hoping we don't make the same mistakes they did on the Bay Bridge.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, come on down. You already had your, no, he's waiting his turn too for a second bite at the apple. So if you want to wait just 2 seconds, I wanted to let as many folks have a chance so that they can.
No, I understand.
Hi, my name is Brad, and I live in the 1200 block of Vernal Way, which is a half block east of Victory Park, north end. The street with big palm trees on it. If your dad was my doctor when I was younger.
My brother lives around the corner.
Yeah, he's over at the museum. But my family's lived in the same house. They built it in 1921, so we've lived there for 92 years. Never had a flood, never expected to have a flood. I don't expect to have one in the next 8 years. I actually have a geology degree from UC Davis, and I worked for a couple big-time environmental engineering firms, and I read the engineering report. So my comments on it are, it's bad science, and it's also bad design. So if you're going to build a gate, you need to build a small one at the mouth. That's pretty obvious when you look at it, if you build one at all. The other option, I wonder if it's ever been considered, is whether or not you've thought about actually abandoning Smith Canal, and why, if that's an option. I see personally no benefit of it. I'm not aware of what the benefit is other than what the historical one was, but things have changed a lot in Stockton, so I'm concerned about that. Incidentally, in Vernal Way, if you go through and you look at it, the lots are actually elevated about 2 feet above the street level, maybe even a little bit more. So if you look at the actual reality of a flood, well, actually, if you go down to Yosemite and Acacia in that area, the houses are actually even with the street level. So any flood in my area is actually going to end up going down to Pacific Avenue, California Street, the police department, before it ever impacts my house. So I'm curious as to why individual houses or streets are not exempted from this assessment if they're not actually at risk of flood. I also read quite a bit and do a lot of research, and it's pretty obvious by doing that we see FEMA is making this play across the country. They're basically drawing up phantom flood districts in their grab for cash to subsidize not only Katrina, but people in North Dakota and Mississippi and other areas that routinely flood. I have personally helped friends of mine from UC Davis that are farmers up by Chico. We've gone up against big agencies, Cal Food and Ag and the Department of Water Resources, and we've thumped them both times, 4 of us. So for you guys to say that you've gone back and really taken the stick to FEMA, I'm a little curious. It doesn't sound like that to me. It sounds like you kind of just said, okay, you're making us do this. It doesn't seem like much of a fight. And I would think that, Ms. Miller, with your experience on the City Council, you guys on the Board of Supervisors, you know the shape that Stockton's in. And people in this area just can't afford this. The last thing I'll say is that when you look at the alternatives, it's either flood insurance, if this doesn't go through, and it's an assessment. And so the flood insurance is daunting for both potential buyers, but also potential sellers, because it's going to be a lot harder to sell your house, because anybody that buys it is going to have to get the flood insurance. So it really seems to be a gun to the head either way. It's just a question of how much you want to pay. So again, I would, I think you fight hard. I don't think you do what FEMA says. I've worked with federal agencies, EPA, and other ones, and they're not the swiftest people around. So I think you need to put up a little bit harder fight, not just give in. And I would also be careful about listening to consultants and not sole sourcing. So if you have somebody who's pushing design, you need to have it evaluated, and you also need to be firm on the costs. And I'll just say, how about that high-speed rail that got passed today? That's another boondoggle in the making. So thank you.
Come on down. You're next.
Hi, my name is Sharon Jarvis. I want to make it clear I am not related to Howard Jarvis. And I live on the Smith Canal on South Tuxedo, and I also have a rental property on Elmwood. I am unclear about the wording on the ballot about a maximum annual assessment. I understand we received our ballots that have a dollar figure on them, but do I also understand correctly that if we vote yes, There's nothing that's going to stop the board from raising those assessments in future years if you determine that a different maximum assessment is needed as you go forward with this plan. And if that is so, then none of us know what we're voting on for the future.
The language about maximum is because the board could impose a smaller assessment. And to give you an example, right now our cost estimates assume a 55% cost share from the state of California. If the state, for whatever reason, shared at a 75% cost share, the local cost would go down. The board would have no basis to impose the entire assessment, and it could impose a smaller assessment. So that's the reason for the maximum language, that the board is not legally required to assess the entire amount every year if it doesn't meet it.
All right, but is the figure that is on each ballot, it will never go higher than that throughout the 30-year proposal?
I can answer that question. There are two components to this assessment. The first component, about 80% of your assessment, if your assessment was $100, $80 would be going to pay for the capital cost of the project. The gate also needs to be operated and maintained. About 20% of your assessment is for ongoing maintenance and operation. So long as the facility is in place and providing the benefit, it will need to be maintained. There is a maximum escalator of 4% on that 20% of your total assessment that can go up on an annual basis, subject to CPI. If CPI is less than 4%, the board cannot impose an escalator higher than CPI. If CPI is greater than 4%, the board stops at 4.
Okay, so in other words, if I look at 20% of the amount on this ballot, every year in the future, let's assume that this is the amount that we have to do, okay, that doesn't come in lower. So you're telling me that every year in the future, 20% of that amount could go up, but no higher than 4% and subject to the CPI.
Correct. If CPI is 1%, if CPI annually, if CPI is 1%, it cannot go. That 20% cannot go up more than that 1%.
And is that in writing anywhere?
Yes, that's in the engineer's report, which is this document right here.
Yeah, I saw it online.
Yeah, that document right there very clearly states what that the process is for that calculation.
Okay, I have another question. Based on the discussion that I just heard about the idea of putting the gate actually at the mouth of the Smith Canal, and you say the board will consider that. If I were to vote no, and everybody else was to vote no tonight, or on the ballot, would you then consider that alternative of putting the gate at the mouth of the Smith Canal? I mean, you're saying if I vote yes, you're going to look into that. What if I vote no?
If you vote no, we're not doing anything.
If we vote no, you're done?
Yeah. The project is not approved. We don't do anything, and basically it's what it is right now. Well, yeah, I mean, you'll still be in the floodplain, and FEMA, those friendly folks, will be sending you updates.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, just a second.
I just wanted to add that the California Environmental Quality Act, which requires all of these environmental reports, is bad for a whole bunch of reasons. One of the good things about it is this body can't act to approve a project without going through that process. So that's why the answer is they're not choosing the one that's up there, and they might choose a different one because they haven't yet done the environmental document. So passing the assessment raises the dollars. Those dollars allow design, consideration of alternatives, an environmental document that says what's the best thing for the public and for the environment. And then at the end of that process, which Jim described as a 3 to 5 year process, that is when the board would actually take a vote on what the project is. In the absence of an assessment, the board has no revenue sources to go through that process. And that's why There is a wide variety of options now, but there really aren't any options without the revenues to study it.
And if you choose, if after going through CEQA and all these things, you choose another option, for instance, the gate, moving the gate, will there be more public hearings to explain that to everyone?
Yeah, there are public hearings as required under CEQA. There are also public hearings required for the board to actually take the approval action. And if a different project was chosen and it was a smaller project, that is why the language of the ballot says maximum, because the assessment could be smaller.
Okay. And I'm showing my ignorance, but I am curious to know how members of the board are selected and who up here is a member and who is just like an advisor.
Kathy Miller and the mayor are the two representatives of Sjafca. Sjafca was formed back in '96 to basically deal with flooding from the east. So you saw all the projects we did on the Calaveras and on Little John Creek and all those little creeks and sloughs that run kind of from the east. And I'm Larry Rustoller and Steve Besselarius. We're on the Board of Supervisors, and Sjafca is a joint powers authority with 2 and 2. And so we're
City council and
City council has
county
2 members,
supervisors.
and the supervisors have 2 members. We basically serve at the pleasure. On our case, it's the chairman appoints us
of the board.
From the board, and the mayor appoints from the city side.
So everybody else up here is not a voting member of the board.
Attorney for Sjafca, Jim Giannini, executive director. Donna. And then this is all Reclamation District 1614.
Okay, so who votes? The 4 of you?
The three of
Three
us.
of you, except that we could have the mayor here, is that correct?
Yeah,
That would
he has
be,
a dental appointment or something.
no, but I mean, there are 4 people who have votes.
Correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you very
And
much.
under the agreement, it requires 3 to pass. And when the board votes tonight, the vote is solely to tabulate the ballots. There is no vote tonight to decide to impose an assessment. That happens at the July meeting, and that's when the board would decide that.
Thank you.
All right. Here.
Good evening. My name is Robin Crowell, and I've been a resident of this community for a long time on Delaware Avenue. And I just have a couple observations and a question. So my observation is that tonight we're voting on whether or not we want to pay the assessment. That would be a yes for the canal. Or no, we don't want to pay the assessment and we'll continue to pay our flood insurance. And we have no guarantee that our flood insurance is not going to continue to rise. I just refinanced my house and had a fight about the flood insurance, so it was really ugly, and they said it was going to be $1,400. My concern with it, so we have the lesser of 2 evils, and whichever amount is the least we need to pay is, it looks like it's the assessment. I'm not saying I'm voting for that, but my concern is the timing of all of this, because I am a county employee, I work with the government, I know how the federal government is pretty slow in their timeliness, so is the state government. So when are you proposing, it may have been in the material and I didn't read every single thing, so forgive me for that. When are you opposing for, when would the assessment take place? Because I need to know, am I gonna pay the assessment and my insurance? And for how long? Because that's gonna be a pretty pricey tag for me.
The assessment, correct me if I'm wrong, Seth, but it kicks in on 14-15, so it would be
Okay.
not this coming year.
Right, the next budget year.
The
okay.
design is going to take, like I said, 3 to 5 years, and then construction a couple of years. So there'll be a double hit of having to pay mandatory flood insurance and an assessment until the gate is constructed.
What kind of guarantee or reassurance do I have that my flood insurance during all of this time when I'm paying the assessment and my homeowner's insurance, flood insurance, what guarantee will I have, if any, that my flood insurance will not continue to also rise?
I don't think we can give you insurance. We continue, as Chairman Rustaller mentioned, we go to DC twice a year and try to, I think we
No,
have.
I know, and the federal government's.
We have
I
a
mean,
better argument if we can say the property owners have assessed themselves this much money to build this gate. Please don't, make the matters worse by increasing the flood insurance. But this is a problem across the nation, and the rates that we're seeing are just astronomical. And so we're trying to.
Right, but we don't have a guarantee based on what you said also,
Yes,
because,
I can't
and I
rely.
know, I've had experience with federal government, and how long they take. But I just, as a homeowner and as an employee who's, I haven't had a raise in, I don't know how many years now and all of that, and it's difficult, it's very hard. I know that there's several people here who are retired, and I know we're looking to the future, but it's just wanting to be clear on what my decision is. Am I gonna decide for the assessment, or, and when is this gonna take place?
One of the things that we've been working so hard to get in Washington, D.C., and working with our legislators that are back there, is to impress upon them that by doing this and by not giving us assurances that those flood rates won't continue to go up, it's a disincentive for anybody to assess themselves and do the work that's going to end up saving all that money down the road. And so that's one of the things that we're advocating so hard for back there, is you need to stop and think about the fact that here you have thousands of people who are voluntarily assessing themselves to do a flood control project, which could potentially save, if you look at the cost of Katrina, billions of dollars down the road. But you're going to punish them while they're assessing themselves? It makes no sense at all, and it's terribly unfair. I mean, we agree with you on this stuff. The problem is we're all ending up dealing with the federal government, and quite frankly, what one speaker said earlier is exactly correct. They've taken big hits in other parts of the country that are routinely flooded every single year, and they're applying those standards just across the country to places that really shouldn't have to pay them. So we agree with you. We're going to continue fighting hard to see if we can't get those assurances, and we are going to continue working with our legislators that are back in Washington, D.C. to impress upon them. And we're not alone here, because Sacramento area is going through this exact same situation. So we are working together with the legislators from the Sacramento area to try and get some assurances so that we can lock in while we do the flood projects.
Thank you.
Come on down. Anybody? Is this second bite? Just a second.
One question.
No, just a second. Is there anybody who hasn't spoken that would like to? Because you got to let the guys have the first bite, and then we'll come back. There's 2 or 3 of you that want to have a second bite, so go ahead.
My name is Stu Woodward. I live in the area of Princeton and Kirk. I've had time to study the maps. I've been to all of the other meetings. And one of the options they said was move the gate east into the opening of the Smith Canal. As I understand it, there's also a weak spot on the north side of the lagoon that would be right inside the seawall that is also deficient. Am I correct? So the option of putting it at the mouth of Smith Canal would not cover all the risk.
Yeah, it would, because we'd fix that weak spot.
Okay. At what cost?
Well, that's why I say by moving the gate, we don't necessarily save money if we have to turn around and in effect strengthen the entire Atherton Cove or portions of that levee. Basically, you have to be able to completely secure the whole thing. You can't have a weak point, because that's what happened to them down in New Orleans. Is they had this great wall, and then it just kind of stopped, and then the water just said, "Oh, well, we'll just go around that," and that's what happened. So,
okay.
No, that's why we say it'll be part of the study.
So no matter what we look at, we're still looking at a big bill. It's 36 million for the gate with the seawall and everything, but it still tend to be 36 million if we have to do a levee rebuild.
We will know more once, if this is approved, then we would basically go forward and study all of those alternatives. And obviously, we'd like to select the one that not only gets the job done, but is the cheapest.
Okay. Don't get me wrong, I'm dead set against all of this, but we're stuck with it. We've got to select the lesser of two evils. Right now, in my estimation, with the studying I've done on it, with the information I've gained from the engineers, from just doing my own research on mapping and stuff, is that unless we want to pay the insurance, we're going to do something. And the insurance is going to continue to rise. And going through 2 different insurance agencies that I have friends that work for, so they gave me their information. Right now, I'm paying about $380 a year. My next one is due in November. It will go up. Luckily, I've been having flood insurance for a long enough time that they're going to grandfather me in, and I'll be in the mid-4s. But there's no guarantee beyond that. And if it keeps escalating, give an example, we had a house sale on our block. The first initial offer on the house, the people qualified for a loan. They were then disqualified because the flood insurance premium was going to be so astronomical that it was going to raise their monthly payment based on their impound account to now they did not qualify. So the deal went through, or fell through. In this case, all the family members pitched in a bunch of cash so they could put a bigger down payment, and they got their payment back to where they qualified, and they were good. We have a second house where we had a woman pass away, and everything was left to their children. And we always say you want to leave it to your kids and for their benefit and everything. Well, there was no benefit, because by the time that they made all the adjustments because of flood insurance, the building code changes, anything that could possibly go wrong, factoring that in, the house sold well below its value, and there was nothing they could do about it but just walk away from it. And so, like I said, we're stuck with the lesser of 2 evils. So what do we do? Take your lick and walk away. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who'd like to speak for the first time? Come on down if you haven't spoken.
Good evening. My name's Tim Cook. I've got 3 properties in the area. One is on Country Club right down the street here on the city property. The other one's over on Christina north of Michael's Pizza, and the other one is all the way over on Yosemite, just half a block south of Harding. That's how big this swipe is making. I'm not real happy with the thing, but if we don't vote for this, and you people can go over some of the stuff, because I see a lot of people here that weren't at the other meetings, so they haven't heard that it's at 50% that you have to do the construction stuff, and it's going to go up and up and up, to where if you just redo a bathroom, you can't do it. You might go over some of those coverages, but when you look at the price difference of what you'll get once the gate is done and what it costs for doing that versus what you're paying in flood costs now, and the way they're going to go up, and what you cannot do with your property at all, it's really a no-brainer, unfortunately, but it is. Thank you.
What he was mentioning is there's some insidious things when you're in the floodplain. And one is building restrictions. The building restrictions come into play, it's a trailer that's up on like 8 feet up in the air over on Elmwood. If you haven't seen it, it's very beautiful. What happens is if you have a fire and you want to rebuild and you've had damage greater than 50% of the value of the home, excluding the land, FEMA says you must elevate. So that's why you see that beautiful thing up in the air like that, is the house was burnt and had to be demolished. The only thing they could rebuild had to be up in the air. Now, does that make any sense? Absolutely not. But it's one of their regulations. If you want to remodel your home, you cannot remodel above 50%. We had a person who had a fire and in the county area, and we had to work with them very creatively to get it so he could go in and fix that fire damage and not have to elevate, because you can't just elevate a portion of your home. I mean, that's not, if you want to know what houses look like, you got to go out into the Delta. If you go out to Ileton, you'll see those homes that are way up. If you go out along I-5, you'll see how some of the homes are up on pads. If you go down towards Mossdale there and turn on 280 towards Tracy, you'll see some of the homes that have been elevated. That's all due to the fact that they have to be literally lifted above the depth of the water that would be there if you were inundated. So this is part of Doris Matsui, Congresswoman up in Sacramento area, has the same exact problem in the Natomas area. She's, madder than a wet hen about this, and so she's been pushing legislation which would allow you to rebuild at your grade level. And obviously we've been yelling about that for a while, so we're very happy to see that some other people are trying to get involved with that also. But that's something we're hoping to get through, but that still doesn't help you with your insurance issue, which I don't disagree. This is goofy. Oh, and Jerry McNerney is a co-sponsor of that bill, along with Garamendi and a bunch of other folks that realize how stupid it is. One of the problems we have is that California is big. And when you're kind of big, there are folks that are in Congress from other states. They don't like you very much. So if it's not their problem, they don't care. So it's part of our job to get folks in the Midwest and in other locales to understand that this is not just our problem. It's everybody's problem. We have not been totally successful with that. We continue to try.
Right. To give you an idea on some of the price breaks, prices. One of my pieces of property was assessed at $273 for the thing. One of the others was $1,100 because it has to do with how high the water would be at the existing property. Another thing that's already come through, one of the pieces of property, the one on Christina that's closer to the river, the other river over there, even though I bought it for $85,000 as a rental and fixed it up and got it rented now, 2 years later the county assessor comes back and has appraised it at $37,000 because of its flood existence. That'll give you an idea of what we're starting to do. And if you want to see the neighborhood go to hell, and I'm talking about not blocks, I'm talking about tens of blocks and whatnot. That's what we're looking at.
Anybody else that has not spoken that would like to come up? If not, I'm going to give the 3 or 4 gentlemen that would like to come up for a second bite. Brief second bite. Yes. You've been waiting. You've been the most patient.
Sir, how did you arrive at this $36,000? Is that FEMA's estimate or what?
The 36 million to build it?
Excuse me, 36 million, I'm sorry.
That's an engineer's estimate,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hired both 1614, 828, and Sjafca hired an engineer. They did preliminary plans, like about 20-30% work, and did a cost estimate on it. And they have contingencies in it. So we feel fairly comfortable with the cost is doable.
Is this one engineer?
It's an engineering firm. Yes.
Okay. And is this ever gone to bid or anything like that?
No, if this election were to succeed and we move forward with a project, and one of the first things we do is we go through an RFP, request for proposal process, hire an engineering company, and have environmental people on that, estimators, and so it would have to be designed. The design's not finished, it's not permitted, it's not environmentally cleared. So, but it's the best we could do with the money that we have available.
Okay. right now have a government that is out of control. And I think every one of you people sitting up there realize that. And this can't last forever. And the more time we can bide, I think would be to our advantage, because this guy's not going to be in office forever. And I mean, he wants to be the dictator of everything. And he's put people in EPA and FEMA and all these agencies that are very radical and out of control. And so I would think that maybe we could buy some time here. You mentioned 4 years, and I would think that that might be behooving.
Don't hold your breath. The map revisions all started under President Bush. So I think we have we're going to get bashed no matter whose party happens to be in control of the presidency.
Well, you're going to see a lot of people putting their homes up for sale, and you won't have any buyers. And then where are you, sir?
It's exactly the information that we continue to convey to Washington.
Yes, yes. All right, thank you.
All right, sir.
I'd like the board to reassess my annual assessment right now, because it was mentioned that the average home is $160. For some reason, mine's $329. And I'm already paying flood insurance. And this is the problem we have. We know that the state has given jurisdiction on the local level right here. The elected property officials decided the boundary lines and the depth of where they're at. And so I thought it was very strange that Riviera Cliff's in the boundary lines, but they're exempt. Same thing with everybody east of American Legion Park, exempt. It's the poorest people that are going to be paying the most, and I'm one of them. I'm disabled and retired. So the problem I have with the thing is I know, just like the gentleman said, we're all going to pay something. That's true. Can't get away from government. But why do I have to pay both? Why do I have to pay for the pump station and pay federal government flood insurance? When some people in the flood zone, they didn't get a ballot because they're not even affected yet. You're going to add 2,800 more homes to the flood zone. They're not going to get a vote tonight. So
they all got ballots, sir.
Well, he mentioned that they were going to add 2,800 homes.
Those people got ballots.
Okay, I stand corrected.
But if you want to know why, Seth will meet with you right now and go over that with you to kind of let you know why your assessment what it is.
No, but my real question is, why do I have to pay both? You know what would have been more fair is if you say those that are already paying flood insurance are exempt, and to a certain point.
If it were up to me, if I were king of the world,
no, I mean, it's up to the
I would tell you right now,
board.
I would not charge anyone a penny for flood insurance if they were spending their money to fix the problem that I personally don't even think is a problem. But if the federal government says it's a problem through FEMA, and they put you in the 100-year floodplain, you got to pay insurance. Now, we're trying to get you out of the 100 plane.
No, I understand that.
And the reason being is because, as was mentioned by the former person, I'm trying to get you out so that we make it a more even playing field about what your property is worth. Because if you've got that 100-year floodplain hanging over your head, it affects your property values.
I won't be here in 100 years.
Well, okay. Anyway.
And the other thing that's kind of strange is the governor wants to send all the water down south. Stockton's got a water treatment plant. They're sucking water out of the delta. So are the farmers. Where is this flood coming from?
Anyway. Sir, come on down.
What is the water level you're designing to for this flood project, flood control project?
Designing it for a 200-year event.
Well, what elevation is the water? Above mean sea level?
10, elevation 10.
What's that?
10 feet. I'm not sure the distance above high tide, or is that what you're asking, Ron?
Well, I think we usually refer to mean sea level when we're talking about water elevations.
We can go over the plans, and if it changes your mind, you can change your vote one way or the other. And it's been approved by FEMA, so they were concerned that it'd be high enough for 100 year. We needed to make it higher than that for 200 year, because there's a state law that says we have to provide protection for 200 year. So it's above 100 year and provides protection from a 200 year event in the San Joaquin River.
Then you should know what the elevation is.
It's elevation 10. It's how it's determined, and that is the stage for a 200 year event in the Delta. And I could bore you ad nauseum with how we calculated it if you'd like, Ron.
What's the rough elevation here? Like compared to 10, is it 6 or 2 or 5 or 8?
The depth of the water, and Chris is probably here, it can be as deep as 10 feet.
No, I mean this right here.
I don't know the elevation, Ron.
I
Sorry.
mean, if we're only talking about 10 feet from
From
where?
We have the elevations, and we could show you that. And any piece in this flood area, we could show you that.
Doesn't Barry have it over the chart?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else like to speak? Going once, going twice. Oh, it's just like, wait to make that bid, just slip in.
Just a quick question. What do we have from FEMA in writing that you build that floodgate, we're going to leave you alone?
Jim, would you like to tell them again about the letter?
Yeah, we submitted, it's called a CLOMAR, a conditional letter of map revision to FEMA. They reviewed that, had an engineer reviewed it. They gave us a letter back, and if you'd like a copy, we can get you that. They said if you build a project, they'll remove the area from the floodplain.
So, had that letter been in this envelope when I got it, I would have immediately voted yes. But in it not being there, I have no proof that FEMA's really approved this, and that they won't come along 5 years from now and say, hey, this is not good enough. That's what I'm looking for. Is do we have any guarantee that we build a floodgate, and then FEMA comes along and says, hey, that's not good enough?
Yeah, and the person we've dealt with at FEMA, Kathy Schaefer, has been quoted in the paper. The record is confirming that. So, we can get you a copy of the letter. And you could call, we'll give you a phone number if you'd like to call. You can call Kathy. If you voted and you want to change your vote, you can do that tonight before the meeting's closed.
I was all set to vote yes, and I see that Mayor Anthony Silva is a director, so I immediately changed my mind. Thank you.
Don't hold that against us, okay?
I got one quick one.
Okay. Yeah, come on.
I'm Andy Meyer. When will the results of the vote be public knowledge?
Tonight, at the completion of all ballot counting, we will report unofficial results.
When will it be official?
The official results will be reported.
Well, I promised to the board to have my memorandum transmitted to the board by next Friday.
So next
So it'll be
Friday.
like in the paper a week from Saturday?
That's up to the board. My communication will be with the board. Beyond that, the board will take formal action and receive my formal communication at their July board meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I tried to kind of milk it out of you guys from what you had said at the last meeting, how it was at 50% on the property value for doing remodeling, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody there had mentioned that it was going to go to 40 and then 30 and then on down, which means eventually you can't rebuild the patio because the whole thing has to be lifted. Would you please bring that up so that the people here, like I said, we got a lot of people here that haven't shown up the other 3 meetings. It'd be nice for them to hear that. I think that'll sway their
All right, Jim, would you tell them what you know?
As I understand it, they changed the National Flood Insurance Program. It's called Bigger Waters 12. They just adopted it. And the only thing they changed on that was the 30%. And they said that if you do that, then you have to pay the actuarial rate for the flood insurance. They didn't change the building restrictions. Okay, so that's still 50%. If you remodel, it's still 50%.
It got pulled out.
Yeah, but they will, invariably that'll change with time. So.
Going once, going twice. Oh, in the back. Come on down.
I just have one question. All I hear about on the flood insurance is how it's going to go and how it's going to go through the rate already. How come when you have homeowners and that they're not only responsible for your house and contents, but people's injuries and everything else, and it's not near as high as the flood insurance? And there's a lot more chance somebody can get into your house or your house going down and not to be flooded. Because the base is a lot bigger.
Well, I'm not sure if I understand the question. He wants to know why your homeowners and your flood insurance are somewhat different, and why they don't have a higher payback for the flood portion that they.
Why is the flood insurance so much more expensive, and it's only one event that they have to pay on? When you have homeowners, they got to pay the house, the fire, the water damage inside, if you pipe break, roof leak, somebody gets injured in property, they got to pay their medical bill. Yet the insurance is practically nothing compared to what you say the flood insurance.
I think it has to do with the fact that you don't have as large a pool of people paying in, and is that, would you say, if everybody has homeowners, and so this pool is much greater, and so the events.
There's at least 4 reasons that I've heard. I'm not an expert at this. One is that, as Larry says, the pool is different. So not everyone has to have flood insurance, whereas everybody who has a mortgage anywhere in the country has to have fire insurance. So that affects the pool. The second is that although it seems counterintuitive, the actuaries, the people who set insurance rates, say generally there's about twice the likelihood of your home being damaged from flood as there is from fire. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they say, and it may have something to do with the fact that it's rare for an entire neighborhood to burn down, whereas one house doesn't flood, an entire neighborhood floods. So it generates a lot higher damages. The third is that there is a $30 billion deficit in the National Flood Insurance Program now, $20 billion from New Orleans and $10 billion from the hurricanes and Superstorm Sandy this last year. And I had a fourth, but I don't know what it was.
What about competition?
Oh, that was the fourth.
That was the fourth, that there is competition in homeowners insurance, so companies are competing, whereas for flood insurance, it's only offered by the federal government, so there is no competition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. I'm keeping this auction open forever.
You know, this dam that you're building is an inflatable dam, and you're building that on the assumption that if a levee breaks, then you're going to raise this dam to keep any more water to come in to this area. Is that right?
Sir, actually, it's being built as a preventative to the San Joaquin River flowing back up into Smith Canal and overtopping or breaching the levee.
Yeah. Well, if the levee breaks in this area, how much water is going to escape into the residential area before you get this dam inflated to supposedly stop the water?
It's going to be operated during flood stages. It's going to be closed. It's not going to be closed after the levee breaks. It's going to be closed in anticipation of high flood stages. That's how it would be operated during the winter.
So in other words, in the wintertime when the water is high, you guys are going to raise the dam.
Yes.
Okay, and then what does it say that the levee can't break today?
Sure, and I described it as a belt and suspenders.
Yeah.
They're going to continue to maintain the levees. I think they're good levees. It just doesn't meet the letter of the FEMA regulations, that it can be certified to their standards. And so it can't be upgraded to that standard. We've come up with the most cost-effective way to do that, which is a gate. But it's going to have to be continued to maintain the levees, because it's always going to have water in it. And it's always going to have water above the ground that it's protecting. So, yeah.
And the other thing, 9 years ago, they said that they were going to rock the levee and reinforce both sides of the Smith Canal. They already had the money to do the south side, so they're looking for the money to do the north side. That has never been done. And I know of one person who lives on the levee that the house has settled because of the moisture content in the levee. Now, by rocking it and widening the levee, wouldn't that also reinforce it so there'd be less chances or no chance for the levee to break, like what they've done out on Woodward Island and Upper Jones or Lower Jones Drive?
Yeah, possibly. Is Chris, I can't see him at the end of the table, but they could maybe talk to their plans for continuing maintenance.
Yeah, as far as the levees along Smith Canal, there's basically encroachments from the homes there, and it doesn't allow you to rebuild the levee or improve or reinforce the levee continuously because of those encroachments. So basically you would have weak points all along there because of those residents.
Yeah. Well, the encroachments would be like the houseboat, the docks that are sticking out.
No, on the land side, the homes are up against the levee.
Right.
And you can't widen the levee at those points to the land side because of those encroachments. They're actually on the levee, beyond the land side toe of the levee. So again, you can't reinforce those levees because of those encroachments.
I see. So in other words, you can't build it from the top of the levee out towards the canal and widen that area.
Right.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah. Again, that's correct.
I know, I still think the best thing to do is put that dam either at the mouth of the levee or at the Smith Canal, or put a dam there, pump the water out. You could put a pipe from Legion Park down here, put a pump there. When you have water coming in the wintertime, you just pump it out in the main channel. And to me, that would be cheaper than $39 million.
There's the Reclamation District 1614 has several pump stations that actually pump into Smith Canal.
Yeah.
So it's not just the city's large pump station at Legion Park, but there's, I believe, 6 or 8 pump stations that also contribute to that. So all those pump stations will be discharging is currently discharging into Smith Canal. So any kind of pump station at the mouth would be very large and very costly. I think that was something that they initially looked at when they actually came up with the gate structure.
Because I know California's Fish and Game has stated that Smith Canal is probably the dirtiest canal in 17 county, and it's nothing but a cesspool. So I say, hey, fill it in, and that would solve all their problems. Anyway, that's all I got to say.
All right. I think we've heard from everyone. We're going to go ahead and close this public hearing. We've closed the public hearing, and now I would ask for a motion to adopt a resolution directing staff to complete the ballot tabulation for the formation of the proposed Smith Canal Gate Assessment District and present the results final at July 10th meeting of the board for board consideration. We are going to tabulate tonight. It'll be unofficial, but the official would be on July 10th. my colleague wants to make sure everybody knows, we are not voting on this project. We are voting to tabulate the ballots. So
moved.
all those in favor say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. 3 votes. Okay. Number 5. Okay. Now I would like the board to move that the balloting remain open until the end of this meeting, which is not to conclude until after RD 1614 has their public hearing on the pump station. And the staff will tabulate the ballots and announce the results final. Okay?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Now I hand the gavel to the chairman, RD 1614, for their public hearing.